Well, this week, it isn't very long before the Kansas Legislature starts its 2016 session. Monday, January 11th is the first day. I'd like to take a look at a few issues the legislature will have to deal with and some issues that it should. But first, there is one thing that receives a lot of attention, but I think really has little real importance, and that is the length of the legislative session. Kansas law prescribes a session of 90 days, and last year the session lasted 113 days, or 114 if we count the largely ceremonial final day. Everyone talked about the record-breaking long session. And recently, Senate President Susan Wagle told the Wichita Pachyderm Club that she would like to see this year's session, the upcoming session, be over in 75 days. But I think the length of the session is one of the least important things we should worry about. Now it costs, I think, about $50,000 per day to run the legislature, and we should not spend that money needlessly. But I think it is more important to do things right and to do the right things than it is to have a short legislative session. Year after year, legislators tell us that there was not time to do things that some people considered to be very important. Wait until next year, they say. But if legislative leaders say that we can have a 75-day session, well, I think it's more important to have a 90-day session and accomplish some things that have been put off. But even before this, it is important that the legislature do a few things that are nonpartisan in nature and will cost very little. One is letting Kansans know more about the proceedings of the legislature. Currently, audio of the sessions of the Kansas Senate and House of Representatives are broadcast on the internet. And that's good. But the broadcasts are live only. There is no archive of recordings. You must listen live, in real time, or figure out some way to record the audio over your computer, which isn't really very easy to do. Now, there is desire by some for live video of the legislature, which, would be great. And even better would be archived video, where a person does not have to watch live. But these options are expensive. The expenditure would be worthwhile, to be sure, but there doesn't seem to be much desire to spend on this. Audio, however, provides almost all the benefits of video in this case, and it's really cheap. For $8 per month, the legislature could make audio recordings of its proceedings available to listen to at any time. Yeah, that's right. For $8 per month, at least one podcast hosting company offers an unlimited plan. Unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth. That's just what is needed. Now, for $79 per month, the same company offers a plan geared towards business with additional features like multiple administrative users. That's probably more appropriate for the legislature, but the $8 plan would work too. And since the audio of the proceedings is already broadcast on the internet, it must pass through a computer somewhere. And that computer could also be recording the audio. And once recorded, the process of uploading the audio to the podcast host is a trivial procedure. There needs to be no editing. In fact, any editing other than cutting away silence before the start and after the end of the session must be disallowed. But there's a problem here. Neither Kansas legislative chamber records their proceedings, according to responses from the Secretary of the Senate and the Chief Clerk of the House when I asked for a recording. Making audio archives or podcasts of legislative sessions would be so simple. It is almost without cost. It would have great benefit. Interns could do the work, and it would be good experience for them. But the Kansas legislature does not do this, and it doesn't appear that legislative leaders want to make these recordings available. We need to ask legislative leaders to make this happen. All that is required is the desire to make the legislature more easily and readily available to Kansans. A related matter is the availability of testimony in the Kansas legislature. In particular, The written testimony and informational presentations provided to committees would be of interest and value to citizens. Most committees, perhaps all, require conferees to supply a PDF or Microsoft Word version of their testimony in advance of the hearing. These electronic documents could be placed online before the committee hearing, and then anyone with a computer, tablet, or smartphone could have these documents available to them. And on the Kansas Legislature website, each committee has its own page. And on these committee pages, there are links for agendas, minutes, and testimony. But in most cases, there is no data behind these links. In February, I investigated and found that only about 1/3 of standing committees in the Kansas Legislature were providing any written testimony online. Since February, several committees have started using the commercial file sharing service Dropbox to make testimony and documents available to everyone. This is a reasonable way to accomplish an important goal. Publishing testimony online would be an easy matter to accomplish, and it would be a great help to those following the legislature. It would cost very little or nothing. It should be a nonpartisan issue. Another thing we need this year are reforms to the Kansas Open Records Act. An important issue is nonprofit corporations that are funded solely or primarily by government, taxes in other words. In Wichita, an example is the Wichita Downtown Development Corporation. It claims it is exempt from the Open Records Act because it is not a governmental agency. Despite being almost totally funded by tax revenue, still not a governmental agency, it says. And another example is Visit Wichita, our Convention and Tourism Bureau. In the past, I've asked these agencies for spending records, and they decline on the basis they're claimed that they are not public agencies. Well, in Kansas, when citizens feel they have a problem with the records law and compliance, the local district attorney is one option available to seek a remedy. And I think I've told you what happened in my case. The Sedgwick County District Attorney's Office sided with these agencies, agreeing with their contention that they are not public agencies. But the preamble to the Kansas Open Record Act reads, "It is declared to be the public policy of the state that public records shall be opened for inspection by any person unless otherwise provided by this act, and this act shall be liberally construed and applied to promote such policy." But despite this expansive language, the Sedgwick County District Attorney's Office decided that these agencies, despite being funded 90% or more by public tax funds, are nonetheless exempt from the Kansas Open Records law. Now, this year, the legislature granted the Attorney General more power to investigate violations of the Records Act. So I asked the Attorney General's office for help. And all that office did, they told me, was to consult the Sedgwick County District Attorney and rely on its ruling from several years ago. So nothing seems to have changed, and millions of dollars of taxpayer funds are still being spent in secrecy. Then there is the problem of fees. A few weeks ago, I told you how I had to pay $24 to the City of Wichita to obtain spending records that many governmental agencies make available at no charge. And I called the city's attention to the United States Freedom of Information Act, which allows for waivers in some circumstances, saying fee waivers are limited to situations in which a requester can show that the disclosure of the requested information is in the public interest, because it is likely to contribute significantly to public understanding of the operations and activities of the government. Well, that's what I was trying to do. But the city responded that the Kansas Open Records Act has no provision for the waiver of fees. And that's true. But agencies are not required by the Kansas Open Records Act to charge for records. Kansas should have a provision for fee waivers, as does the federal government.